Hello, welcome to Tony's Bonsai. Today I've got 3 trees to work on. I've got a hawthorn, a Katsura maple, but I'm going to start off with this silver birch, which is quite interesting, so let's take a closer look. I've had this tree pushed to one side for quite a while, and I just keep looking at it thinking, what the heck can I do with that? This half is dead. This side, it's quite uninspiring really. So, first thing, let's look at the roots. The reason I was struggling so much with this is because it's quite a thin trunk and it comes off this big lump. I didn't know what to do. However, having revealed these roots a little bit while trying to work out what to do with this tree, I've noticed it's got a really nice fat wide spread of roots here, and so I think I can just chop this off here and try to add some nice taper. The first thing I need to do is get this out of its pot. That was fairly straightforward. I don't want to do too much root work to this tree, but I think I need to lift it up somehow. At the moment, all these roots that are on the surface are all higher than this root base. So I think what I can do is try to kind of put it on a mound of bonsai soil in the centre, which will then hopefully make this into a bit of a dome. This looks to be nice free draining soil, which the tree obviously likes. So I'll just pile that up in the centre there. In fact, I'll get some more in my own bonsai soil. Just to really build that central bit up there, like that. I mean, it's certainly not pot bound, so I don't think there's any need to go mad with these roots. Yeah, that'll do. And you see, because I put that on that mound, it means that I can now push these roots down like that. Therefore, exposing these nice roots here. And they are quite nice. I think they look pretty good, these. I think there's some potential there. And this can become part of the composition. It's not the most interesting tree without these roots, but with them in, you know, I quite like it. I can just fill in around these edges. And because I didn't take too much soil off, it's not really, it won't even barely know it's been touched, this tree. Silver birch are very, very strong rooters. They send out tons of really thick roots, and roots are just never an issue with this species of tree, in my experience. Now that we've got this fairly well-defined root base, we've obviously got this coming here, this one comes off and down there, which is lovely. It's just obviously this is dead. Some people may say, why don't you gin that and turn it into some kind of feature, which is possible. I'm always a bit sort of torn with deciduous trees for having just dead stumps. I mean, if I cut it to there and carved it like that, it's not for me. It's not for me. It'll slowly rot down over time, and it'll always look, I think it'll always take the eye away from the flow of the tree. You know, I love the curves, and I think this would look nice curving from here and then coming up and across. Now, I know it'll take time to heal a wound like this, but silver birch, in my experience, do heal quite quickly, so I'm not really worried about that. I'm just thinking if I cut across at an angle there so that this can kind of come up here, that should do well. I'm going for it. That's quite a serious big lump still left on the side of the tree there. I mean, look at that. When I rotate it round, it's a big ugly lump, which I don't like. Therefore, I'm going to go for a second chop here. Now we're beginning to get somewhere. From this view, it's still very, very bulky on this back edge, so I want to do something about that. That's beginning to look better. And I think the job now is trying to clean this off and make it look as good as possible, and allowing the bark to callus round. I still feel like it's a touch too chunky around this back edge here, so I'm just going to take a bit more off there, like that. Ah, that's better. Yeah, I prefer that. I'm really pleased with that cut there, and it's turned out with the shape of it that the wound is actually almost pointing backwards. So from that front, although you can see it, it's not sort of in your face. Everyone's got their own personal preferences in bonsai, but I know for a fact a lot of people at this stage would be now pruning back to 2 buds there, 2 buds there, compacting it in. People may even go back and start pruning these branches. That's something there's absolutely no way I'll be doing. I want these to grow. These can go as high as they want. Hopefully they go another metre tall and don't care what they do. What I want them to do is pull sap up this trunk to help that to heal over the next couple of years. So I'll leave this alone now for the year. I might come back to it next spring and give it a prune. Right, on to the next tree. Up next is this Katsura maple, and this is an air layer that I removed from one of the maples in my garden. I can't remember exactly when I did it, to be honest. I think I removed it last year in the summer, and it had, you know, it's had sort of 9 months in its own pot. So I think it's time to take a look and see how the roots are doing, because I never removed the root ball of the moss. So let's check it out. Now there's no way this will be root bound or anything, but it's more a question now of just seeing what state the root base is in, and look at all those roots. It's got plenty of roots on it, so it's looking good. I've never really looked at an air layer like this the year after, so this is a first for me as well. I'm really quite excited to see what these roots look like at the base, and to see what sort of condition the moss is in. I'm just trying to be nice and gentle as I slowly break this root ball up. As I prod in there, I'm banging on the bottom of the branch. Obviously the air layer was removed down here and I left that piece of existing branch on, which ideally that should be cut back at this point as well. See, the moss is just coming out like that. These are pieces of sphagnum moss that are just, I'm able to just tease out of this root ball like that. Part of the idea of an air layer is that if you're lucky, you get a nice natural radial nebari forming. It's kind of one of the reasons that you do it. So I'll be really interested to see if I've got that here. I need a slightly sharper chopstick. Yeah, this one's better. Okay, into the water I go. While it's in the water now, I think I'll just try and sort of poke this base and see if I can get some of that moss out. Now that should make things a little easier, and I think the first job now is to peel back these roots at the bottom and cut off this stalk. See that branch there? That's the branch, the old existing branch, and I want to get right in and get rid of that. So I've cut that right back into those roots. Therefore, with a bit of luck, this will now be a nice flat radial root base. I'm kind of setting myself up for failure here when I say this, but I've got an air layer to remove from my sister's garden later this year. Well, in the spring. And it's going to be just an amazing, amazing air layer. It's on a very old, twisted, gnarled maple. And the place where I'm going to do the air layer, it's got some just ridiculous potential. So I'll be excited to show you that air layering, and I'll be using the same process that I used on this tree. I'm just cutting those very long extreme roots off, and I'm just going in and just trying to comb the roots outwards just to help create that radial spread of roots. There's a few thicker ones underneath that could possibly be removed, like that one there. It's coming right down, if you see, so that's a good one to be cut out. And because I've got so many roots to play with, there's another one here. This one's coming pretty much directly down, so again I'll take that off. And I've got so many good healthy roots on this, I can afford to take a few away. And as for this nebari at the base, I think it's going to be a beauty. There's just one root here that's a little bit high. So anything that's a bit too high can come off. And there was a lovely root just below it, so that works out nicely. Just one thing I will do, this root coming here, it's in a really nice spot, it's a good healthy root, it is definitely thicker than all the other roots, and there are other roots around it. I'm just wondering whether I should remove that. with it being so much thicker. I think I'm going to. I'm being careful because I don't want to cut through the roots below it. There we go, and we've got a lovely thin root just below it. So that's perfect again. The same thing's happening around here. We've got a slightly high root and there's a lovely root just below it there. So by doing that, I'm just creating that level nabari, so all the roots are coming out of the same plane. And in terms of pruning, apart from just snipping off these very extreme tips, I won't do any more root pruning to that. And now I just need to select a beautiful handmade ceramic pot for this that'll just match the colours. Maybe next year. A washing up bowl is good for now. The soil that I removed from the pot I've just piled back in, and I'm going to just sit the tree down onto that, like that. Then in with some bonsai soil on top. In terms of pruning this tree, I'm doing nothing now. I'm going to leave this to settle in. It's got 3 trunks. This one obviously died, which is quite nice. It leaves me 3. However, these 2 thin ones, I don't know, they just look a lot better than this thick one. So I suspect I'll be removing this thick one in the summer. So that'll be chopped off there, making it a twin trunk. If anyone wanted to make a case for air layering, I think this would be a pretty good example. You know, just a branch that otherwise I would have just cut off, instead turned into a nice little tree with a lovely set of roots. Right, on with that hawthorn. This one is a challenge. I can't quite remember, but I think this is the tree that I removed an air layer from last year. The air layer is looking really good. It's going to be a broom style. I've already done some work on that this spring. This is really healthy, but I need to do something with it, and the roots look awful. So the first thing I need to do is check out those roots. This feels pretty weighty, so I'm thinking it's one of my limestone chippings trees. Let's have a look. Yeah, there we go. I feel like I have to mention it in every video that I do with one of these chippings trees. When I first started bonsai, this is what I did. I put them in limestone and covered them in a mixture of soil and peat, or just soil, which is what this is. This is just garden soil. It doesn't even look like it's got any peat in it, although it might have. I used to have a hole in my garden that I used to get all my soil from. So I just dug a big hole, and I used to just empty bags of compost or peat into it and then mix it up with a spade in this big hole and then say, there we go, bonsai soil. I just didn't know anything, and the roots don't grow as well. When you compare the roots on this to the roots on that maple, you'll see the difference. It'll have far less fine feeder roots. Although, to be fair, it does look like there are a few roots. Don't look too bad on the root front. When they're fed and watered and they've got good drainage like this had, it's surprising how well they do, even if they're just in a very basic soil. I need to wash this. Okay, in we go. I mentioned it the last time I was working on a tree like this, that one of the good things about planting it in such sort of dissolvable soil is that if you want to wash the roots, it just disappears. You know, it's very easy and you get a great view of what's going on. And the reason I want to expose these roots is because in order to decide what I'm going to do with this tree, I really need to see the roots, because I think that's where the interest is going to be. The rest of the trunk, there's not that much going on, so hopefully I can create something with this which is worthwhile. Now that's getting really cold on my hands. Woo! Right, what have we got going on here then? Look at this. Well, first of all, we've got a lovely, we've got some lovely taper that's tapering from here and coming up. That's really nice. We've got some interesting roots down here. Got one coming upwards. And around this side, again, I think we've got some fairly interesting stuff going on. This is the big thick root here that comes down. So I'd like to make use of these roots somehow. There's the option, first of all, of going with something quite crazy like that. So really using these roots almost as kind of exposed aerial roots in that way. And I like them all except this one. I just don't like that one. Although when I get low down and look at it, that is quite interesting. But it spoils the flow. And you lose that taper. And I really like that taper. So this is one that I'm definitely happy to get rid of. Boom. Yep. Glad to be rid of that one. Got a tiny little one on the top. That can definitely go. But the rest of them, I really kind of like. And I think a compromise, I don't want them quite like that, but something like this here, or from your side, sort of there, I think that works well. I like it. And so there's just this one root here that comes upwards, and what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to use some tape and pull that down into position, because I do want to keep it, although it won't be in the composition. No, it's never going to be used in the composition, so I may as well just get rid of that one. And then these roots here can be almost exposed in that way. And there's not much on the back. We've got one root coming here. There's a couple of smaller roots that will develop over time. So there are bits. There's nothing sort of under there. So I think that is a natural front for the tree there. And then hopefully these roots just thicken over time. I think this green pot will be a nice size for this tree. So there's loads of soil in there, nice and loose. Get this tree in here now. And this is that's the kind of orientation that I see this tree working best in. And just fill it in. if anyone who's been watching all my videos is wondering how much soil I go through, a lot. This year already, and we're only, you know, mid-March, I've gone through over 500 litres of bonsai soil. That gives you an idea of the amount and size of projects that I've been working on. If ever there was a more natural windswept style tree, I've never seen it. However, I'm not going to do windswept on this. I've got 2 windswept hawthorns already, and I want to do something different with it. I've applied some wire to the branches, and what I'm thinking is I've got a nice little bud at the back here that's just coming out in this direction, which is perfect. That's a really good branch there. I don't want it to be a windswept, so it's going to all kind of happen around here. This could be a really nice branch with some nice basic movement in it. I've only wired the ends because I'll twist that because there's a bud there that I want on the outside of a bend. I've only applied it to the ends of some of them because I'll be chopping these back in time, so it doesn't really matter. And I've done some fairly loose wiring on them because I'd rather not scar them if I can avoid it. And this is just kind of standard techniques, you know, in bonsai. I've got a nice little bud here. I'll push that on the outside, and I'll finish with the branch tips pointing upwards if I can, just because it's more healthy for the tree. And now for this one, where do I see that? This one's coming kind of here, but this could be another nice one coming sort of forward. Like that. Let me have a look at that from the camera's side. How does that look? Yeah, I like it. It's just perhaps these 2 branches here, they're crossing a bit, but they're only crossing from a slightly elevated position. If you come lower, then these 2 branches are fine. So from down here, you can see we don't have the same issue of these clashing. If anything, this is now clashing with the main trunk. Lovely. I think all 3 of those trees were relatively successful. I'm really happy with this and the maple. The silver birch, time will tell on that one, but interesting trees with bright futures. As always, thanks for joining me. Have a great day and I'll see you soon.